you learned from Don himself.
Yes, I did.
I'm just rocked by that. I feel very privileged in my timing and placement in the world to have learned a lot of what I know about popping from Pete, from Pop and Pete, who's been a guest on the podcast, and almost everything I know about locking from Tony Basil, who's an original locker. I
Yes.
also trained a lot with Sugar Pop. He was teaching in LA pretty frequently for a short stint there in my kind of earlier training days. But
Mhm.
locking was a style of dance that once I saw up close, I could not be in it. And don't like, I was unfunky with it at first. I was not a good locker at first at all. It took a deep dive, but I couldn't pull myself away from it. Was your experience with it in the early days? Did you take to it well? Did you feel like, oh, I've got this? Or did you feel, I felt whack. I felt terrible, but I knew I
Oh
had to keep
man.
going because it was so fun to watch.
Okay, so it's a kind of up and down. So first when I saw it, I
right,
felt I was amazing because I was a little kid watching Coltrane and I felt like I looked like them in my room. I felt like I
right,
could
right.
do that like half split and get up and I'm amazing and because
Oh,
I
I
was
can
just
see
styling
this.
out in my room. And it's funny how that is our innate being is before society
Mhm,
tells you what you can and cannot be. You know what I mean? You're
mhm,
just you. And that's such a beautiful thing.
mhm,
But holding on to that's so hard, right? Once I started getting my
mhm.
head, of course, I never thought I was cool enough. And then when I got to college and when I created Cabo Modern, that was when I was around so much affirming energy. I felt like I had something. You know what I mean? I was like, this,
Mhm.
I do have something, and as long as I'm with people, I'm a communal dancer, so I've never been that person. I wanted to be front center. I don't particularly love solos,
Or
I
or
love
or
the
or
energy.
battle.
Yeah, I've never been a battler. I love the exchange of ciphers and circles and stuff, but I
Mhm,
don't like
mhm,
battling. It's just not
mhm.
in my particular essence. Um,
Cosign. Party of
right.
two.
So I
Yeah.
felt, but to participate, part of my training. So when I took over Culture Shock LA in 2003, one of the things that we did in those beginning years was to have a locking crew, a breaking crew, and a
Mm,
popping crew, in addition to our hip hop choreography company. And we did that because we
nice.
had access to these OGs, one being Don Campbell in our proximity. And we felt like we can, if we devote a couple of years to these crews, then we can spend focused time on honoring these OGs, knowing them, participating in those spaces, and then being bridges for the future. So,
Awesome.
for in the beginning, before I met Don Campbell, I was training with Shabadoo. I took Tony T's class at Debbie Reynolds. I was
Yeah.
just like, I really wanted to be the perfect locker. And when I was trying to
Yeah.
chase perfection and doing the fundamentals perfect, I never felt like I was good enough. And our locking
Ah,
crew, which was Tiffany Bong, Donna Aragante, Josh Ventura, Ira Emil Houston, a bunch of us in Culture Shock, we were like, we just want to be good enough, you know? And so we were
right,
like,
right,
we can
right.
only learn a certain amount in rehearsal. We need to go to the clubs. And the best clubs are the ones that have live music because then you can really play with the horns, right? And the bass lines.
Ooh.
So we went to this club called Larchmont. And in the corner of the club, we saw this guy with a black top hat. And most people play with a handkerchief, but for some reason, he was playing with this tissue Kleenex, and it was getting ripped to
Ooh.
shreds. But it still, at the same time, you're like, how is he making that tissue dance? And we were just
Yeah.
dancing with him for hours. And when the lights came on, I said, "What's your name?" He said, "I'm Don Campbell." And we were like, we literally fell out and fell to the floor. And we were like, "Oh my gosh, Don Campbell!" And he was so
Whoa.
generous that day. He followed us out to the parking lot, talked to us in the parking lot for another hour and a half. And one of the things that from the very beginning, he was like, he went to each of us, it's like, I like it when you use your hips. Your arms are long, so whenever you use your arms, you're really powerful. And he told me, he's like, you have a smile that lights up the whole room. That's your superpower. And I realized as I got to have conversations with Don, the foundations and the fundamentals are important as a stepping stone, but you become a real locker when you embrace who you are, the specialness in you. And one of his quotes was like, no one will ever beat you at being you. So he would
Mm.
say, be yourself, like learn the
Mm.
fundamentals, know the history, pay respect to all the people who created it, himself included, but be yourself. Because he said one time, he said, no, the show begins when you let yourself go. And I was like, oh my God, that means not thinking in your head, just being yourself.
Right.